appears you got here just in the nick of time. What does that make us?
Big damn heroes, sir.
Ain't we just?
Let's discuss the irrational concept of hell. For the sake of this discussion, we'll ignore the obvious immorality of infinite punishment for finite crimes, the lack of evidence, bad physics, and so on, and take the Catholics, Muslims, and fundamentalists at their word, defining hell like this: a place separate from heaven, visible from there, however, cut off from God's love. Hell contains eternal physical punishment in the form of a lake of fire where your presumably immortal body is burned in an unquenchable fire and you choke on the fumes of sulfur and brimstone. Accepting this is true, hell fails. Sure, it sounds scary to an immature and irrational mind, but let's examine this with a bit of reason. First of all, there's the sadistic spectacle aspect, where those who get to heaven can see the punishment of those who don't. Now that's sick on many levels, but one must question who is being punished there. Those in heaven who presumably got there by following the directives and are therefore compassionate souls who have to watch the torment? Or the people in hell who presumably don't give a shit in the first place? This concept of being able to watch the torment is really a very immature line of reasoning, as is hell itself. It's rather like a child who's just been bullied on the playground who imagines having a big sibling who will give the bully a thrashing in front of the whole school. Not that I condone bullying, but as an adult we understand that having your big brother beat somebody up is usually not the best way to resolve a conflict. Second, being cut off from God's love is a meaningless statement. Clearly, if you got sent to hell, you can't make the case that God loves you anymore. The action and the deed are contradictory. Moving on to the physical aspects of hell, the torture. The whole concept of eternal torture fails for two reasons. One, torture is effective because it plays on fear, specifically the fear of death. Read Orwell's magnificent 1984 or watch the movie V for Vendetta. Both stories show a victim tortured beyond the point where they fear death. Once the fear is removed, torture is no longer effective. Now, how long will it take a victim thrown into hell to realize that they cannot die? The fear of hell would be canceled by the realization that nothing they can do to you there can actually kill you. But what about the pain aspect? Have you ever been in real pain? How about having to live with chronic pain from an illness or injury? Those who have will tell you that pain can be managed and that it doesn't require drugs to do so. There are hundreds of techniques that can be used to deal with pain: mental imagery, meditation, and others. There are documented cases of Buddhist monks and other adepts undergoing invasive surgery without anesthetic. Granted, for some it takes years to learn these coping strategies, but presumably you'd have as much time as required in an infinite hell. Now, the counter-argument to this would be that the torturers would stop you from using such techniques, but how would this be possible? At this point, we need to discuss free will and its role in torture. Even if I go to hell, I must retain my free will, which means that I would still be free in my own mind. Therefore, I could use whatever mental means needed to escape my torment. This isn't just psychobabble. This is documented science about how people learn to cope with horrific situations. Torture victims who survive death camps, for example, often do so by becoming disconnected mentally from the world around them, so much so that it can take years of therapy before they can return to normalcy. But what if they cleverly took away your free will? So what if they did? You wouldn't care anymore. As Descartes so famously said, "I think, therefore I am." Now, ignoring the argument behind that statement, the implication is perfectly valid here. If I cannot think, I do not exist. If I do not have free will, I cannot think. Therefore, I cease to exist. This isn't just logical juggling. Naturally, the dualist materialist debate is settled if hell is real, but I'm not attempting to provide evidence for either side when I say that phenomena where the free will is taken away from a living individual can be observed right here on Earth. We are so accustomed to being in command of our faculties that it's difficult to imagine a situation where we are not. This is despite our experience to the contrary. A crude example is someone in a persistent vegetative state like Terry Schiavo. They can appear to be awake and responsive, yet there's no thinking going on. A more common and subtler example is someone who's taken some sort of recreational drug, especially in the psychedelic variety. They can be robbed of their free will, yet still be awake, sometimes doing bizarre or horrific things, not the least common of which is some sort of self-injury. When they recover, they have little or no memory of the episode, although the physical wounds certainly persist. Certainly it's obvious that torturing a person in such a condition would be a futile exercise at best. In conclusion, the concept of eternal punishment by torture is not only childish and irrational, but utterly impossible while free will exists, and meaningless if it does not.
If I'm your mission, Shepard, best give it up. You're welcome on my boat. God ain't.